Listen. Do you hear I don't know if you hear the locusts. They're not overly loud. I remember as a kid, we used to live by a river. And there must have been a locust, because this brings memories back of that time when I lived by the river in this, we called it the Gray House. And of course there was a bunch of frogs because we lived by a river. And the noises were so loud it would keep me up at night. Dad made me a little crystal radio. And it was hard to hear, but you could get AM radio off of it. And I'd put that earbud in my earbud. They didn't call them back that, earbuds, I guess. But I put it in my ear, and I bury the other one in my pillow so I could get some sleep. But it's not as loud. I'm a little disappointed, but it is fond memories. So I must not have hated it, as I guess my point is. But the locusts are kind of hanging out in some of these vines. People are going to say this is poison ivy, be careful, but it's not poison ivy. I think Carolyn called it Virginia vines or something. But you can see maybe right here, that's this exoskeleton that they kind of come out of, I guess. I mean, I'm not an expert on locusts or anything, but there's not a locust in there. They've already come out of their shell. There's one. There's a real locust right there. So, but I would think that they're just now starting to come out of the ground, just emerging now. It's been a few days, but it's not as big as everybody said it was going to be, so maybe it's going to be bigger. Carolyn comes out here and scrapes them off and feeds them to chickens, and they go absolutely nuts. And the thing is she's not giving them the locusts themselves, she's giving them the shells, and they still love the shells. Okay, so in a previous video, I told you that I was going to cut this tree down. And I had some guy come over and he gave me a quote of $750. And I don't want to pay that much. I was thinking about this. I can buy a cord of wood for about, let's just call it $300. I'll round it up to $300. Last time I bought it was $200, but I'm going to round it up to $300. So a cord of wood is 3 of this size tree. About 14 inches in diameter is what it is. This might be a little shallow, might be a little small, but it'd be about 3 of these trees. So that's a cord of wood. People are going to say, oh no, that's not varying on sizes. This is on average, about three of those trees. And 3 of these trees would fill up my truck 3 times. I know, I've done it. I mean, this isn't like something I'm imagining. 1 tree fills up my truck of this size. So 3 trees, they sell for $300. Now the thing about the 3 trees is typically they cut the tree down, they cut the tree up into little logs, and then they split the wood for you. And in some cases, they'll actually stack it and dry it out for you for a year or so. So this guy wanted $750 because he was afraid this tree could come back and hit the camper. But I've said all this in the past, but I'm going to just kind of refresh your memory. This tree leans the opposite direction of the camper, but it also leans a little bit towards the house, specifically the well. The well is what had me most concerned. But the reason I need to get this tree down is because of the power lines. I've told you about that. And no, I'm not hooked up to the power. It just made the property real cheap, but I got to get that down. Although I've been driving around town, well, the area, I say town all the time, the area, and I've seen tree limbs actually encompass the wires. I thought they'd catch on fire because those are exposed wires, so you get a negative and a positive or something, and there'd be a current to go through it. So, but I don't want to have the electric company come out here now. I know the electric company wouldn't be the ones coming out. They would hire a contractor to come out and trim it up. But I don't want them out here because they'd want me to move this camper. So the other day, I came up with a solution that I was going to get on top of the camper. Now I got up on top of the camper to show you what I was going to do. And I was going to buy a pole saw. Now hear me out on this. I was going to sit on the top of the camper, and that V-shape limb there, the two highest ones there, or the highest V I should say. I was going to cut the one limb, let it fall this direction, and cut the other limb, let it fall the other direction. But the only pole saw that I can find that is long enough is 16 feet. Well, there's actually two of them. One of them is on Amazon for $150-ish. It's from China. It's got one review, and it said, didn't work. That's all it said, didn't work. Well, I'm not really wanting to spend $150 just so it didn't work. And with it coming from China, it might be hard to get it to return. I've only returned, I think, one item, I think. No, I'm not even sure I returned an item. But anyway, I've had issues, only one issue in the past, whatever it was, can't remember what it was. And I did not like how hard it was to resolve the issue. So, I don't really want to buy that saw. So the other saw that I found was at the hardware store, 16 feet long. It's a Husqvarna, and it's nearly $700. So $700 for a pole saw, or $700 to get this cut down, $750 to get it cut down. Well, I didn't like either one of those options. So the other day, I showed you I was gonna fix up my chainsaw. It's you know, just one of the throwaway chainsaws. And it needs a carburetor, and it needs a new spark plug wire. Actually, it's called a stator, I think is what it's called. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it's called. So I've got them on order. As a matter of fact, the carburetor should be here today. I just got an email saying UPS is in your area. The stator is coming from China, so it's going to take maybe a week or two more, which I'm not in a hurry. But I need to get that saw running no matter what, or get a new saw. So when I get this tree cut down, I can cut up in logs. But then I still got the problem, I can't cut this tree down until I get those limbs down. The reason is I know I'm not good enough to confidently cut this tree down. Something could happen, and if it rolled back on those wires, it would be devastating. I'm sure that would be more expense than I can stand. So I want to get those limbs cut out. So here's what I want to do. But before I say this, I know there are going to be people who tell me, you can't do that, that's not safe. That's not safe, don't do that. And I've been thinking about this endlessly since I thought of the idea. Now, I've mentioned it in a video before, but I don't think anybody caught what I was saying, because people kept saying, go to Amazon, they got this chainsaw for, you know, $100, and it was electric, and it's 10 foot, it's not long enough. I specifically said I need a 16-foot chainsaw. But people didn't hear that. 10 foot is not long enough. Even if I did it from the ground, it's not long enough. I got a piece of PVC pipe, 10 feet long, and I tried to lay it up there and I couldn't reach. So it's just too tall. So I need 16 feet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get that chainsaw running. And I got a 30-foot piece of 2x4 underneath the shed. That 2x4 cost me a lot of money. When we built a house, I wanted to put the metal roofing all the way around the house, and they brought these crates out. Now they charged you for the crates, but you were supposed to be able to return the crates, and these crates were 30 feet long. They're incredibly long. Maybe they were 20 feet long. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Regardless, they were long. So I wanted to return them. The problem is, if I wanted them to come out and get it, because they delivered, Home Depot delivered, or maybe it was Menards delivered it. So they charged me to deliver it, all the materials. Well, these things are too long to put in the back of my truck. So if I needed them to come and return it, they were going to charge me more than what the crates cost. So I just kept it. And we've used a few of those 2x4s, so it's not huge. I think when we built the shed base, we used some of them. So I got one that's 20 feet long. That'd be plenty long enough. So I have figured out, at least in my head, how to hook up the chainsaw to a piece of 2x4. And then I will run a wire. I'll put one of those loop bolts, eye bolts, except it won't be a bolt, it would be a screw type, on top of the 2x4. And then I will put the wire so it will trigger, or pull the trigger so it will rev up. Of course, you got to attach it because you don't want it moving around or anything. You want to make sure it's on there good. So I got to work on all that and figure out, maybe just glue. I'll glue it on just so it doesn't move around. I got that Gorilla Glue. And then I can pull that and it'll rev up the chainsaw. Now, just to be clear, I will not put it up into the tree until I've tested the theory of it to make sure it works, and I'll do it on the ground. I got this old log that we cut down last winter of pine, or I'm sorry, cedar, and I'll stand back here 16, 20 feet, however long that wood is, that 2x4, and I'll cut it right here on the ground. That way I can see if it's going to work, because everybody's going to tell me, oh, it's too heavy, you can't lift it up. Well, I won't be lifting it up. If I were to do it on the ground, I would literally sit on the ground. Just sit. With the 2x4 kind of in between my legs, underneath my buttocks, and then I can just hoist it up and lay it in the limb. I don't need to hold on to it. I could even get a rope and kind of have it like a guide rope. But like I said, I want to be on top of this roof, which I don't even have to lift it up near as high from this roof. Again, it's got to be 16 feet, but I can sit on this roof, comfortably lay it up there on the limb, just let it sit there. And then when I'm ready, I can just rev up the gasoline and let the saw, the weight of the saw and the wood, the 2x4, cut that limb. It'll fall down, I'll be safely out of the way. I can't imagine too many issues with this. But like I said, I'm going to test it. Thing is I have to tell you now. That's what I'm going to do. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to make a video where I've actually decided to cut this limb. I'm up there, I'm cutting it. I post the video, and people start reporting it to YouTube, telling me how unsafe it is, and YouTube needs to take this video down. Well, I'm not hurting anybody, and what I will do in that video, I'll put a disclaimer. Don't do this at home. You know, if I want to hurt myself, that's my business. But I can't imagine how I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to be nowhere near the saw and nowhere near the limb. Even if the saw and the limb, or I said limb, well, the limb, yeah. And even if the 2x4, something happens and it goes crazy and I lose control of the saw, well, the only thing that's going to happen is the saw falls to the ground, I drop it, and I sit there safely on top of the roof of the camper. The limb is certainly going to fall away from me because it's leaning in this direction towards the house. So I just wanted to give you a forewarning. That's what I'm going to do. So if you have your complaints, trolls, right now, don't list them below. That does not say complaint section, it says comments. But as far as telling me not to do it because it's dangerous, well, I'm going to do it anyways. It just depends on whether I'm going to do it on video or not. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where it's yesterday's video. So hope I can inspire you. But thanks outside the box. You can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.